Get started. So I just want to make sure, Mr. Swanger, that you have everything you need.
Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
Awesome. And it looks like a recording has started. So just want to make that announcements for students that these sessions are being recorded, and we'll be uploading them to our school's YouTube page so that we can tune into them later. I believe, Mr. Swanger, if that's not you recording the meeting, it might be Miss Lyon. So afterwards, I will
Mary,
connect.
It's me.
Okay, perfect. If you want to record
the sent to Nate. It won't be
awesome.
sent anywhere else.
Will you also connect with me afterwards, and then that way I can get the video and I'll make sure it gets uploaded to YouTube.
Oh, Mary, I think it's sweet that you think I know what I'm doing. Okay, sure.
Okay, just because when you're recording, I don't think I can record at the same time. So we'll just connect after and we'll make sure that we get that.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, cool. And then for everyone else, we're about a minute till, so we will get started. My name is Miss Seekman. I will be moderating this session with Mr. Swanger. So in just a moment, I'll turn my camera off and I'll be watching the chat. A couple of just announcements before we get started. We do ask that if you're tuning in for this session, you stay the entire time. This session, Mr. Swanger, you will have until 12:30 to chat with us today. And I will download the participants list and send that to Ms. Taylor in the attendance office for everyone's attendance. At the end of our session today, I will put the link back to the Career Exploration Day agenda and to the reflection assignment in the chat, so you have direct links to both of those. And that reflection assignment will be due back to your program instructor. If you have questions for Mr. Swanger throughout today's session, I ask that you put those in the meeting chat, and I'll make sure that I am keeping an eye on that. And if Mr. Swanger misses anything, I'll relay the questions to him. And just a quick reminder on today's requirements. If you are a half-day student, this session will count for one of your 2 sessions. And if you are a full-day student with us, this session will count for one of your 4 sessions. And the last sessions will take place at 12:30 this afternoon. All right, that being said, I am going to take some time just to introduce our speaker if you have not had the chance to meet Mr. Swanger. He is our instructor in our automotive tech program. He's a phenomenal instructor and has some great things to share with us for this afternoon. So Mr. Swanger, take it away.
All right, thank you, Ms. Seekman. It's a pleasure. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you were able to join us today. I wanted to do this because one of the things that's always been a challenge, I think, with a lot of organizations, whether it's schools or corporations, other businesses, is we love to throw around the word leadership. They'll say in a meeting, hey, make sure you use good leadership or exhibit good leadership, practice good leadership, but no one really breaks it down so that you know what are the traits that help you to become a good leader. So I'm borrowing a little bit from my military experience and my life experience beyond that to try to help all of you kind of recognize these, not only so that you can see them in others, but mostly so that you can work on them within yourself. So this is a way, and these traits, they work not only for people that are in leadership positions or billets, but they also work for people that are in the lowest levels. Even just somebody who's an entry level, technician or IT person or entry level medical assistant or whatever your career choice is. These are traits that go across the board and they fit for anybody, regardless of your station. So when you think about leadership, hopefully my buttons work here. When you think about leadership, especially in the military, you might think about something like this. Let's see if So this is an example of some leadership. These are Marine drill instructors, and they look kind of scary, and they are. But one of the things that they start doing it from day one even for the lowliest recruit private, as they start talking about leadership, because they want these young men and women to grow into these leadership roles that later they'll be taking on as young NCOs and even as privates and lance corporals. So the first leadership trait, there's a total of 14. The first one I want to talk about is justice. So we define justice as the practice of being fair and consistent. A just person gives consideration to each side of a situation, and they will base their rewards or punishment on merit. So you look at those situations and you decide, based on the merits involved, these are what we're going to do. So some suggestions for improvement. So the first is to be honest with yourself about why you make a particular decision. Okay. Avoid favoritism. Some of my students have heard me jokingly say to them, I don't play favorites. I hate you all the same. Now, of course, obviously I don't hate them, and they laugh and we all have a good time with it. But my point to that is to say that I don't want to play favorites. We always are going to find people that we like better than others in any kind of organization, any kind of relationship. But the key is not to play favorites, to try to be as fair as possible at all times, and to treat all people in an equal manner. Right? So moving on, our next one is going to be judgment. So judgment is your ability to think about things clearly, calmly, and in an orderly fashion so you can make good decisions. One thing that happens a lot is people tend to rush to judgment without taking into consideration all the aspects of any given situation. In court cases, involvements with the police, it's up to a judge and a court to decide to the totality of events. So somebody may, for example, be breaking the law, but when they look at the totality of events, there may be a justified excuse for it. And that's just an example. So some suggestions for improvement. You can improve your judgment if you avoid making rash decisions. So again, take the time, gather as much information as you possibly can about in this situation, and don't rush to judgment. Approach problems with a common sense attitude. In almost every case, common sense is going to really dictate the best form of judgment, And again, these are traits that we have to work at. I continue to try to work on these all the time. In some ways, I found that these traits have become, very natural for me, but in other ways, I find myself still working on them. Sometimes with students, I'll find myself rushing the judgment about a situation before realizing that there's more going on than what I think there is. Okay, so our next one will be dependability. So dependability is defined as the means that you can be relied upon to perform your duties properly. It means you can be trusted to complete a job, is the willing and voluntary support of the policies and orders of your chain of command. Dependability also means consistently putting forth your best effort in the attempt to achieve the highest standards of performance. So this doesn't mean just getting by. I know there's the old saying that D for diploma, okay? But has that proven you to be dependable? Are you that person that the teachers or your supervisors, your managers are going to call on when they need something and they need somebody who is reliable and dependable? So suggestions for improvement. You can increase your dependability by forming the habit of being where you're supposed to be on time. That's a big one right there. Be on time. So a lot of managers, supervisors, that's a big one. Time is the most valuable asset that any of us have. So we can't replace it. It is perishable. There's no replacing it. And when I find somebody who is unreliable, undependable, and they tend to waste my time or they don't respect my time, then that's not necessarily the person I'm going to call on when it comes time to, that I need something done. So don't make excuses. Okay, that's another thing, so carry out your tasks to the best of your ability and don't make excuses. If you mess up, you mess up. Own up to it. Say, hey boss, I messed up. I shouldn't be, I don't want to make any excuses. I made a mistake. And then take that opportunity to learn from those mistakes and move on. Okay. And then the last part of that is carrying out every task to the best of your ability, regardless whether you like it or agree with it. You have to accept that there are people appointed in positions of authority over you, and they're going to make decisions. And sometimes you're not going to like their decision. Sometimes you're not going to agree with their decision. But it's important that you follow through regardless. I think it's important that, that a good leader in management will give you the opportunity to voice your opinion on something. But after that, it's their call, and you just carry on with it to the best of your ability. Okay, we'll move on. I saw somebody had asked if this can help them with their job. I'll address that real quick before we move on. Yeah, absolutely. I think and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this presentation, because these are all traits that once you're in the job, especially, you can build that reputation as being a good leader, to be someone who is dependable, to be somebody that they can count on in a pinch. And those people are the ones who eventually get promoted. You don't get promoted into being a manager and then become a manager. You should be management material long before you ever get promoted, if that makes sense. So I hope I addressed that question. So initiative. Initiative is taking action even though you haven't been giving orders. It means meeting new and unexpected situations with prompt action. It includes using resourcefulness to get something done without the normal material or methods being available to you. In the Marine Corps, we used to say, improvise, adapt, and overcome. So sometimes you may not have that tool that you need right then, but that doesn't change the fact that whatever that job is has to get completed. So it's a matter of, how do you find a way to get that job done? And that's taking initiative. Another means of taking initiative is finding things that need to be done and doing them without having to be told to do them. These things have to be done regardless. So you can take the initiative. It's not that much of a burden on you, but it actually lifts a great burden off of your superiors, your management, your supervisors, because it's one less thing they walk out and they see, oh, I see all these supplies have been put away. Oh, great. Well, that's one less thing I have to worry about. I can go on and do something else. So ways to improve your initiative is work on staying mentally and physically alert. So pay attention to your surroundings. Okay, there's always something going on, and I like to say keep your head on a swivel. Looking over here, looking over there, paying attention, seeing what's going on, and then finding those opportunities to show initiative and help to get things done. Be aware of things that need to be done and then do them without being told. So we kind of already covered that. So, all right, I'm going to move on. Decisiveness. So decisiveness means that you are able to make good decisions without delay. Get all the facts and weigh them against each other. By acting calmly and quickly, you should arrive at a sound decision. You announce your decision in a clear, firm, and professional manner. So you don't want to yell at people unless, there's almost no situation where yelling at somebody about what you want to do is good. But as far as decisiveness is, you have to make a decision. It is better to make a bad decision than to make no decision at all. A lack of decisiveness is not a trait of a good leader. So ways of improving your decisiveness. So practice being positive in your actions instead of acting half-heartedly or changing your mind on an issue. Now, a lot of this can be very subjective. This can be probably one of the most challenging traits that are there, is because there's that fear factor involved where you want to make a decision, but you're afraid to make the wrong decision. All you can do is take the facts and the situation as it is in front of you right then, make the best sound decision that you can at that time, and then be prepared to live with it. So sometimes you'll get it right, and sometimes you'll get it wrong. Okay, but be prepared to live with it. So, all right, I'll move on. Tact. So tact means that you can deal with people in a manner that maintains good relations and avoids problems. It means that you are polite, calm, and firm. So tact is, when you approach somebody, even if they are confrontational, for example, that you don't help escalate the situation. That you try to be that force that brings everybody down to a good level where you can actually then communicate and bring your emotions to a point where they're not interfering with the conversation. So some suggestions for improvement. Begin to develop your tact by trying to be courteous and cheerful at all times. Treat others as you would like to be treated. So if you were in a meeting and you wouldn't want the person on the other side of that table yelling at you, then don't yell at them. It's kind of the golden rule, right? So again, this is one where you have to keep your emotions in check. Stay focused on your task. What is it you're trying to accomplish? And remember that these are people. Okay? They want to be treated with respect. Okay? You want to be treated with respect. They want to be treated with respect. Right? It's a two-way street, and it has to start somewhere. So let that be you. You be the one who takes the first step, and you can be the one who demonstrates tact in these situations. Okay, we'll move on. Integrity. So integrity means that you are honest and truthful in what you say or do. You put honesty, sense of duty, and sound moral principles above all else. Now, this can be a little bit of a struggle for a lot of young people. One of the reasons is you're all afraid to get in trouble. All right, and everybody should be afraid to get in trouble. But if you make a mistake, again, own up to it. Take that, and it's yours. You own it. You go up there and you say, hey, you know what? I goofed. I zigged when I should have zagged. There's some consequences that came with this. Your leaders that are appointed over you are going to have a huge amount of respect for you after the fact. They may be upset then, but the fact that you didn't try to. There we go.
Okay, I was going to say, you unmuted for a second. You good?
Yeah. Well, somebody didn't like what I was saying. No, but your leadership is always going to appreciate that you are having integrity, going up to them. I had a perfect example. I was pulling a car in years ago to change the oil and do some other work on it. And I'd forgotten that there was a light pole right next to where the car was parked. I ended up smashing the driver's door against this pole. I was backing out of the stall. I went right back in. It wasn't easy. I didn't want to, but I talked to my manager and I said, Don, I just want to let you know I smashed the door on that car. And of course he was upset, but he said, well, let's get it in. Let's see what the damage is and we'll go from there. I think because that I went to him immediately after it happened without trying to hide it or make excuses, without blaming anybody else, that eventually by policy, I should have had to pay for maybe the first $1,000 of the repair. I didn't have to get charged anything. They ended up waiving the whole thing because I was straight up with them. And, I said, hey, I made a mistake. So that integrity. As a leader, if you're later in a leadership position, integrity is going to your subordinates and saying, hey, you know what? I thought this was going to be the right thing to do for us as an organization. Turns out I led us down the wrong path, or I made a mistake in my decision making. This is what I've learned. And as a teacher, I find that my students tend to respect me more when I admit that I made a mistake on something than they would if I simply keep trying to make excuses or blame somebody else or whatever the case may be. So some suggestions for improvement. So be absolutely honest and truthful at all times, okay? And stand up for what you believe to be right. Now that last statement there, yeah, absolutely stand up for what you believe to be right. But there are limits, obviously. You can make it known, respectfully, tactfully, that you don't agree with something. But if it's not your decision to make, you also have to respect that. Understand that somebody else has that burden on their shoulders, and you go about your business. So you can see where some of this may seem like it's contradictory, but it's actually not. It's about finding how you implement each of these traits into your daily life. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. There we go. Enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is defined as a sincere interest and exuberance in the performance of your duties. If you are enthusiastic, you are optimistic, cheerful, and willing to accept the challenges. So what does that mean? I mean, enthusiastic. I mean, how many of you go to flip burgers at McDonald's and you're enthusiastic about it? I get it. It's probably not your dream job. You may not even like going in there. It's hot in the kitchen. You're tired. You're on your feet all day. But if you notice, the people who do have the enthusiasm, they rub off on the others. They create a positive culture within that organization. And eventually, what you'll find is there's that one guy or gal who's always down and it just will not show any enthusiasm for anything they do. And that's the person that ends up kind of ostracizing themselves from the group because everybody else is bought into, hey, yeah, this may not be our dream job, but it's a great job and we're doing what we have to do. And yeah, try to cheer them up. That's very good. So when you're enthusiastic, though, you're going to be called upon. That's going to be noticed by your leadership, and they're going to call upon you, say, hey, here's somebody who's always happy to do their work. Let's offer them an opportunity for a little more responsibility. Let's appoint them to a leadership position. They're not going to appoint the person who's, grouchy and angry all the time. No one wants to put that person in a leadership position. So enthusiasm, while it seems a little awkward at first to talk about that with leadership, it actually makes a lot of sense, and I hope it does for you. So some suggestions for improvement. Understanding and belief in your mission. So that, whether you're flipping burgers or you're pumping gas or you're changing oil in a car, whatever the case may be, you have to understand what you're doing and have a belief in it. Almost every program here at DACC is related to customer service. So knowing that you're providing a service for people in your community, there's what's not to be enthusiastic about with that. I mean, you're providing a service that other people cannot do or are not able to do. So in turn, you're going to be a customer going to other people, asking them to do things for you, provide services that you are not willing or able to do for whatever reason. So, and try to understand why even uninteresting jobs must be done. So I saw someone posted earlier, like putting tools away. That would be a good one. It may not seem, putting tools away at the end of the day, cleaning up your labs may seem uninteresting, but it is a job that needs to be done. Things have to be taken care of. And so, you attack those uninteresting jobs with the same amount of enthusiasm as you would the jobs are very interesting. So, all right, move on. So bearing. So this may be a term some of you may not be familiar with. Bearing is the way you conduct and carry yourself. Okay, your manner should reflect alertness, competence, confidence, and control. One of the things you want to do with bearing, it's all about how you reflect to others around you. They see how you conduct yourself. For example, if the smallest little thing happens and you lose your temper, and you blow up at somebody, that's losing your bearing. So think about a ship sailing through the ocean. A ship sailing through the ocean, everything's going great, it's a beautiful day, and suddenly a storm comes in. Well, the ship has a bearing, it has a course that it is following, and when that storm comes in and throws it off course, well, the ship has lost its bearing. So the same thing happens with you. You have a mission, you have goals that you're heading towards, and you don't want anything to cause you to lose your bearing. This also extends not only into how you act, but also like just publicly how people see you, but also think about your schoolwork. If your goal is to graduate high school and you're not doing your remote assignments, well, that's losing your bearing. You're not getting those assignments done that are going to help you graduate high school. And I'm not trying to get on here and be preachy, so please don't take it that way. But this is just an example. If your goal for my students is to be, a master technician at some point in their career, well, every time that, they get a job where a bolt breaks or something's hard to get removed or they can't find the information and they throw a fit about it, well, then they've lost their bearing, and that doesn't help you achieve your goal. So some suggestions for improvement: to develop bearing, you should hold yourself to the highest standards of personal conduct. So you think about when those events happen, staying calm, not allowing your emotions to get the best of you. It's so that you can get that job done and stay on course. Okay. Never be content with meeting only the minimum requirements. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier with the a D is for diploma, right? Yeah, a D will get you a diploma, but when you're sharing your transcripts with those colleges or maybe those employers later on, and it does come up, trust me, I know, I've been there. Every one of us that works here has been there. That does not necessarily reflect well on you. So think about that. So yeah, bearing is a big one. So I hope that made sense of that one. I know that's a little more obtuse than, not obtuse, that's not the word I'm looking for. Well, it's a little more muddy, if you will, than a lot of the others. So yes, Hannah writes, something I found that helps with self-confidence and also how others see me is good posture. Yeah, absolutely. Good postures, shoulders back, head high, your back straight. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great example. Thank you, Hannah. All right, I want to move on. Miss Siegman, I noticed my camera was turned off. Should I turn it back on, or do you want me to leave it off?
I say turn it back on.
Okay.
Yeah, that
I don't know how that
present.
happened, but I'll do it. I'm sure no one really wants to look at this mug, but that's okay.
And Mr. Swanger, we're gonna have to unmute you, and I'll pop in and share. If that's a student who's currently connected with us, muting and turning off cameras, I need to ask you to please stop doing that, so we can continue on with our session. Go ahead, Mr. Swanger.
All right, thank you. So unselfishness means that you avoid making yourself comfortable at the expense of others. Be considerate of others, give credit to those who deserve it. Oop, there's the bell. So, sometimes you just, you look at something that needs to be done and you're willing to make a sacrifice. In the military, we were taught that leaders eat last. So normally you might think that, oh, we're going to let all the bigwigs go through the chow line first, let them get their food, and then it works its way down. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The lowest ranking enlisted men and women go through the line first, and then the lowest ranking NCOs, and then the high ranking NCOs, and then the staff NCOs, and eventually the low ranking officers, and then the high ranking officers. If you run out of food, guess who doesn't eat? High-ranking officers. So this is a form of selflessness or unselfishness. Basically, what you're doing, you're putting the needs of others ahead of your own, and that is definitely the sign of a good leader. So some suggestions for improvement: avoid using your rank or position for personal gain, safety, or pleasure at the expense of others. Now, we've probably all met somebody who has had a position or a job title of some sort, and they've used that to try to make it easy for themselves. Definitely not an example of unselfishness. In fact, quite the opposite. Those are people that are being very selfish, and they're actually abusing their authority in that case. All right, moving on. Courage. So courage allows you to remain calm while recognizing fear. Moral courage means having the inner strength to stand up for what is right and to accept blame when something is your fault. Physical courage means that you can continue to function effectively when there is a physical danger present. So I'm not suggesting that, you do things that are intentionally dangerous, but understanding that some jobs, some tasks are inherently dangerous. We lift cars up in the air above our heads, and it's inherently dangerous to walk under a car that's in the air. If you're in the medical field, it's inherently dangerous that you could be around bloodborne pathogens. So it's a number of things that go on there. So the biggest thing here is understanding that while you may be fearful, courage is that perseverance in the face of fear. So you just keep carrying on what needs to get done in spite of the fear that you're feeling. So suggestions: you can begin to control fear by practicing self-discipline and calmness. So when you feel yourself getting scared, try to remain calm. If you fear doing certain things required in your daily life, force yourself to do them until you can control your reaction. Being able to control your reaction is paramount to displaying good leadership, even at the lowest levels. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to move on, and so before we run out of time here. So knowledge. So definition of knowledge is the understanding of a science or art. So each of you and every one of your programs is learning a science and or an art. Knowledge means that you have acquired information and that you understand people. Your knowledge should be broad. In addition to knowing your job, you should know your organization's policies and keep up with current events. So I think it pretty much is self-explanatory. So the person who, I'm again using my lab as an example, the person who only knows how to work on brakes but doesn't know how to work on other parts of a car because they refuse to learn it, well, that's not necessarily someone who's going to be a good leader. Those are not leadership traits that you want to exhibit. But the person that says, hey, I mastered brakes, now I'm going to move on to suspension. I'm going to move on to engines. I want to move on to electrical, and embraces those and learns from it. Those are the people who will eventually move into leadership. So suggestions: increase your knowledge by remaining alert, listen, observe, and learn about things you don't understand. Study books, manuals, and other forms of instructional literature, and talk with those who have more knowledge than yourself. And there's lots of people out there that are more than happy to mentor you. All right. Let's see, Lyndon writes, you have to try the harder things. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, attack those things that are hard until they become easy. Loyalty. So here's another leadership trait. Loyalty means that you're devoted to your organization, your country, and to your seniors, peers, and subordinates. You owe unwavering loyalty up and down the chain of command to all seniors, subordinates, and peers. How can you be a leader if you don't have a sense of loyalty to the people that are your peers, the people that are appointed over you, and really, especially the people who are appointed under you? So suggestion for improvement: display your loyalty by never discussing the problems of the organization or organization members with outsiders. So keep that business to yourself. Do these other people have a need to know? If they don't have a need to know, then there's no reason to share. Never talk about seniors unfavorably in front of your subordinates. So for example, I don't go to my class, even if, say, Mr. Weaver and I have a disagreement on something. I don't go to class and, oh, that Mr. Weaver, he's an idiot, and he's a jerk, and I don't like him, and don't respect him because he didn't agree with me. I don't do that. Even if I disagree with Mr. Weaver and he says, I need you to do something, I'm going to do it. And as far as my students are concerned, they're going to think I'm the one who told them to do it. That's loyalty. So I don't always have to agree with my superiors, but I do have an obligation to carry out the orders that are given to me from time to time. Okay. Once a decision is made, carry it out. So we kind of just talked about that, and carry it out willingly as if it were your own. Okay. All right. Endurance. Endurance is a mental, physical, and spiritual stamina that is measured by your ability to withstand pain, fatigue, stress, and hardship. For example, enduring pain in order to improve stamina is crucial in the development of leadership. You're going to have times that are going to be hard. Sometimes maybe you've got something going on with your family. Maybe you had an argument with your significant other, and you're feeling down. But when you go to work, you have to focus on work. You kind of compartmentalize, if you will, put that aside, and try not to let that outside force influence how you're performing for the day. And this is difficult. I struggle with it. I think everybody does, to not be influenced by those outside forces. But endurance is how you get over that. So suggestions for improvement: develop your endurance by engaging in mental, physical, and spiritual training that will strengthen you. Finish every task to the best of your ability by forcing yourself to continue even when you are physically tired and your mind is sluggish. Notice I didn't say physically exhausted. I'm saying physically tired. So I taught an adult ed class last night. By 5:30, between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, all I wanted to do was take a nap. And I knew it was going to be a hard night. But I pushed through, and pretty soon we got moving around, and my endurance showed, and we had a great class last night. So in spite of my being tired. So again, know your limits. That's a big part of endurance too. Know your limits. If you've reached your limit and you know that, hey, I can't go any further, then it's time to take a step back. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, push yourself. Don't stop just because the first little thing went wrong, or the first little obstacle, because it's just that. It's an obstacle. It's not this huge wall that you can't get over or around, or you can't get through it. It's a minor obstacle. You just got to figure out how to step over it. Okay. So I got two more slides here. So in conclusion, by following, practicing, and incorporating these leadership traits into your life, you can earn the respect of those around you. So this will enable you to be a much more effective leader in your community. So I do want to talk about the word respect for a moment. And by definition, respect is the to hold something in high regard. So if you want people to hold you in high regard, then you have to earn that. This is not, respect is earned. It's not something that is granted. It's not a right. These are things that you have to earn, and you earn them by the way you conduct yourself. And these traits, I believe, will help each and every one of you to become a better leader, to become a better person, to become a better employee, a better family member, whatever the case may be. These carry on throughout all aspects of your life. So I see somebody wrote, Zachary wrote, I hear people suggest the idea to spiritually train oneself fairly often. How does one do that? I don't want to answer that directly. I think that's something that maybe you would talk to a family member. There are lots of people who attend Christian churches, Jewish synagogues, or they're Muslim. There's lots of ways to do this, and those are just an examples, probably the most common examples. There's other ways to get in touch with yourself spiritually. Again, I don't want to try to give you a direct answer, but I would say at the very least, talk with your family, maybe your parents, grandparents, and see what suggestions they may have for you on that. So I hope that helps, Zachary. All right. And last thing I want to share is a quote. So this is the man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly but errs, who becomes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Theodore Roosevelt. All right, I am finished. So thank you all for coming in today, and I'll turn it back over to Ms. Siekman. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Swanger, so much for sharing. Students, stay on the call for just a second. Of course, if you have questions and want to stick around, Mr. Swanger and I are available. But for everyone else, I am copying right now the link to the agenda with the last session meeting links in the meeting chat. So if you have one more session to attend this afternoon, that's where you will find those links. And then I'm also including the link to the reflection assignment. And remember that these are, this will count for your attendance and for some programs a grade. So make sure to turn in this reflection assignment to your program instructor. And again, thanks students for joining. I was keeping an eye on the chat. A lot of examples were shared. So if you spoke up and shared, thank you. And if you asked questions, thank you as well. For everyone who has a session starting at 12:30, that's about 4 minutes from now. So you can leave this meeting and head on over to your next meeting. Thanks so much. And if anyone has questions and want to stick around for Mr. Swanger, he can turn his video back on and answer those.
All right, let's see what questions I got.
And then Miss Lyon, will you stop the video recording whenever you can? Yeah.
All right, so I think I see,